Good morning. Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build workshop. This is a free online workshop for those who want to get their California contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all the parts of the license application and to give you practical tips to help you complete it correctly. We want to give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and qualifications to get your California contractor's license. We will also help get ready for your licensing exams. We'll give you a link to a video that shows you exactly what to expect on your test date. Today's webcast is presented by the Contractor State License Board, the government agency responsible for regulating the California construction industry. I'm Anna Rodriguez, Enforcement Supervisor. Joining us today is Fode Garagoslo, Licensing Supervisor. Good morning, Fode.
Good morning, Anna. CSLB is overseen by a 15-member board that directs administrative policy for our operations. Our board is made up of 10 public members, including 1 labor representative, 1 local building official, and 1 representative of a statewide senior citizen organization, and 5 contractors. Appointments are made by the governor and the state legislature.
Please note, the CSLB test centers are open. They were closed from December to February due to COVID-19. Applicants will have to take safety precautions on test date. That includes wearing a mask and more, but we will go into those details a little bit later. If you are watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and want to participate, you will need to join us on WebEx. There's a banner with a link at the homepage, www.cslb.ca.gov. That is also where you can download this presentation to follow along. The presentation file includes clickable bonus links that appear on the slides throughout this workshop. We are going to present a lot of information at you today, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We will archive this video of the workshop and put it on our YouTube channel. That way you can go back and watch it again. To ask a question, you're going to want to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the page, not the chat feature. On the bottom right of your screen, you will see the Q&A feature. Finally, we tend to get a lot of questions during these workshops on how you document your work experience and what credit you get for your education or military service. Those questions are fine, but we would ask that you wait to send us those questions until after you see that part of the workshop. Again, you can use the Q&A feature, and you want to make sure you send your questions to all panelists. We will go through your questions at the end of our presentation, which should take about 45 minutes.
The information obtained during this webcast is not nor is intended to be legal advice. While this webcast contains general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. If you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who is familiar with California construction law or review the 2021 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download it for free on CSLB website or purchase directly from the publisher LexisNexis. There are links for both at the bottom of the screen.
So here's a list of what we're going to cover today. We will take you through the process for applying for your California contractor's license. First, who needs a license? Next, why get a contractor's license? The minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license and what credits you might qualify for. The type of business entities, the different CSLB license classifications. We will also spend a lot of time giving you tips to help you fill out your application, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. We will also be covering fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check. We will help get you ready for the exam or the exams that you will need to pass in order to get your license. And finally, the other things you'll need to have in place before your license is issued, things like a bond and insurance.
First, today we will take a look at who needs a license. Here in California, a state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That total includes both labor and materials. The law doesn't let you break down a project into $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the job totals $500 or more, you need a contractor's license. So what is the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the State Business and Professions Code. In this case, it's section 7026.1. We have got a link to that code at the top of the page if you download the presentation. I have read the entire code, but I will read the entire code, but pay a special attention to the part we underline. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, proposes to have the capacity to undertake, or submit a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. In other words, you don't have to do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for a construction job if the bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself why you should get a license. Well, here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows that you've taken the steps to get licensed and that you are serious about your career choice. It also allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work that you do. There is a value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanic lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with a fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and/or a $5,000 fine, and potential administrative fines anywhere between $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to a license preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So what do you need to get your license? First, it is important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies or businesses, also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. That's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. Here is the short list of minimum qualifications you will need. You must be at least 18 years old. You must have either a valid Social Security number or valid individual taxpayer identification number, which is called ITIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade being applied for. Or you can also get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. We will spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application in a few minutes.
It may be possible for you to substitute your education, your technical training, and your apprenticeship training for some of the required experience. We tend to get a lot of questions about this. First, CSLB cannot prejudge your experience. Due to the number of applications that we receive and we process every month, we don't have enough staff that would be needed to prejudge your experience. We can only review your documents after you have submitted your application for a license. Next, to get education credit, the coursework must be directly related to the work that you will be doing as a contractor. Your education cannot be substituted for more than 3 years or 36 months of the required experience, meaning you will need to have at least 1 year of practical experience if you get the full 36 months of education experience credit. To apply for education credit, you must provide CSLB written documentation. That means you're going to need a copy of any apprenticeship completion certificates that you may have, or get official technical school or college transcripts. Get those transcripts sent directly to you, but do not open the envelope. You want to leave it sealed and include it with your CSLB application packet. Note, high school courses will not earn you any credit towards your contractor's license.
If you are looking to get education credit to meet the 4 years or 48 months of experience, you will need to get your license. This is the most important slide of this entire workshop. This is the kind of credit you can expect to receive for your education. Note that for some areas, we are only giving you averages, or you will see that your credit will be determined on a case-by-case basis. We are not going to be able to give you any more guidance than what you see on this slide. So our best advice is do not rely on the combination of your experience and education credits to barely hit the 4-year experience mark. There is always the real possibility you will not get as much education credit as you were hoping. Let's go through the chart from the most credit you can get to the least. The most education credit you can get is for a Bachelor of Science degree in construction management. That degree will get you the full 36 months of credit. Next is a master's or bachelor's degree in business or a law degree. Any one of those will get you 24 months of credit. An associate in science degree in construction management will get you 18 months credit. A bachelor's degree in some other major will get you an average of 18 months credit. An associate degree in majors beside construction management will get you an average of 6 months credit. Credit for individual college classes are given on case-by-case basis, usually with a maximum of 6 months credit. Apprenticeship completion certificates will get you 24 to 36 months, depending on the classification of the program. For example, a sheet metal worker's apprenticeship gets you 24 months credit for the C20 or HVAC and C43 or sheet metal classifications only. A lineman apprenticeship gets you 36 months in C7 low voltage and C10 electrical classifications only. If you have transcripts for other technical training you have taken, you might be able to get some minimal credit as well. Again, don't use your education credits to try and squeak by the 4-year or 48-month requirements.
If you served in the military, some of that service might count as well. On the bottom of the page, you'll see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program, where you can learn more about that information. The license qualifier also must pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of our CSLB test centers. One exam is on the California business law. The other is in the specific trade covered by the license. We also have limited specialty licenses, which we will discuss a little bit later. Those licenses only require that the qualifier take the law and business exam. As we mentioned, the qualifier is a person who must take and pass the required examinations, or they can qualify for a waiver. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the waiver. only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both of the exams if you fall in a very specific situation. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have also included a bonus link here at the bottom of this page here. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more in depth on that in just a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you are trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as a project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you are going to need to determine before applying for your license is which type of entity your business will be. There are 4 types. First is the sole ownership, where the owner or responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. Just about 2/3 of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownerships. Second is a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as the responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. Just under 1/3 of our licenses are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partners or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. That's 2% of our licenses. Finally, a limited liability company or LLC, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. About 1.5% of the California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about the license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filing your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 distinct categories. There is a bonus link to our classifications list at the bottom of this screen here. First is our Class A or General Engineering Contractors. These are contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones that build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are just about over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next, we have our Class B or General Building Contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing or carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final classes are C or Specialty Contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skill and whose principal contracting business involves the use of a specialized building trade or craft. Examples from this class include C10 Electrical Contractors, C20 HVAC Contractors, C27 Landscaping Contractors, C36 Plumbing Contractors, C39 Roofing Contractors, C46 Contractors, and C53 Swimming Pool Contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes that fall under our C61 classification. These include the C61 D49 Tree Service Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
Here are the two forms you will need. On the left is the license application. On the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There is your bonus link on the left side of the page, so be sure to download this presentation. We will give you a closer look at the different sections of these forms a little later. Okay, now let's break down the steps of the application process. First, identify who will be the qualifier for your license. That person will be responsible for exercising direct supervision and control of the company. If you are using an RME, a responsible managing employee, as your qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for an exam waiver. Be aware of companies you pay to connect you with a licensed qualifier. In some cases, these qualifiers are in a different part of the state and cannot exercise the direct supervision needed, or they are unwilling or maybe even don't understand their role as a qualifier. Next, make sure you complete the correct application. There are two options: application for original contractor license and application for original contractor license exam waiver 7065. We have got links to both at the bottom of the page.
The next step is determining your company name. Take a look at the application for examples. Some things you want to keep in mind. Your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you're getting. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you cannot have a company name of John Smith Plumbing Construction, Heating and Drywall. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name that you have registered with the California Secretary of State's office. The name of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed on your CSLB application. You can also use what is called a DBA, or doing business as. The main thing to remember here is that your DBA cannot be misleading as well. And you must use that name in all advertising and on all of your contracts. Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualifications. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. We mentioned that a few minutes ago, but here's a bonus link at the bottom of this screen here for more information on that program. To participate, you must have had an honorable discharge. Be sure to include a copy of your military DD-214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. Proofread for any missing information on your application. Make sure you have provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date your application. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation to take your examination. If so, complete a request form and submit it with your application. We will talk about the use of a translator a little bit later.
Next is a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for a criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB, depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, all home improvement salespersons. If you are in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what's called live scan. You can get an updated list of live scan locations around California broken down by county on the Attorney General's website. We have got a link here, or you can simply go to Attorney General's website and search for live scan. You will also see we have a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. If you are out of a state, it's going to be tough for you to get us your fingerprints. That's because you must submit hard copies of them, the old-fashioned way. Those take anywhere between 3 and 6 months for the FBI and Department of Justice to process. When things settle down with COVID-19, you may want to consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scan done here.
So what happens if you have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also considers. They are the nature and severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since the conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions within 7 years of the application date. So for applications filed this year, we would look back to 2014. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back for 3 years of the application date back to 2018. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications we receive based on criminal convictions. You'll also note the bonus link to our fingerprints information page.
Okay, along with the education credits we talked about earlier, this next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for applicants. It is how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years or 48 months of experience within the past 10 years in the classification for which you're applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since 2011. The experience must be at no less than a journeyman level or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or owner builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified as opposed to a trainee and can perform trade without supervision or one who has completed an apprenticeship program.
There's a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if needed and simply attach them at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience form as you need in order to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. You want to remember to be as accurate as possible. Make sure the person who is certifying your work describes the actual work that you performed and also the dates in which you performed them. We will now be providing some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate your work experience. You want to keep in mind, you don't want to copy and paste this information directly into your application. These are just examples so that you get an idea of what we are looking for.
At the top of this chart is the classification and type of experience you are trying to demonstrate. This first example is journey person experience. The overall theme we will keep repeating is the more specific the description, the better. The work experience form should be completed by your certifier, someone who has knowledge and observed your work experience for the classification you're applying for. That person does not have to be a licensed contractor.
Okay, so our first example here is for the Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for journey person experience is to be very specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work. It's something like this. Bob performed rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something generic, something like this. Residential general building trades. For four-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and/or supervisory work. Here's an example of the best type of description. Bob oversaw other staff at job site performing rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, something unacceptable would be something that's generic, something like this. Residential general building trades. For a supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at that supervisor level. An example is something like this. As a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Something unacceptable would be something more generic, something like this. Residential general building trades. For our out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were either out of the state, military, federal land, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journey person, a foreperson, or a supervising employee. But just remember, you want to be very specific about the duties and your employment circumstances. Our next example here is for a C-27 landscaping contractor. First, for the experience at a journeyman level. The best type of description your certifier would use would be something like this. Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. An unacceptable explanation would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C-27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a foreperson would be something like this. Jane oversaw other staff at job site performing landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable description, again, would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C-27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at that supervisor level. The best type of description would be something like this. As a construction lead on multiple projects, Jane supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for the supervising employee would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. Finally, for those out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for general building contractors would apply. Be sure you include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as work that was done for the military or on federal land or for a government entity. Be sure that you are specific when you describe the duties that you performed and also your employment circumstances. Now, by law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all of the information provided at least on 3% of the applications that we receive. Our next 3 slides run down the acceptable documentation that you can use to support your work experience in the event that your application was selected and you were asked to provide additional information. Now, this supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You will only need to provide this information if it's requested by a CSLB staff member. On the lower right of the screen here, you're going to see a link to this publication. It's available on our website, and along with additional information on experience documentation. If you look at the chart, you can see that the first column is for documents that you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column here is for documenting your experience if you've been self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need if you're applying for a Class B general building contractor license and you need to use owner-builder experience to meet the experience requirements. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, there's you can click on that link there to view and print this publication from our website. Here's the final page of acceptable documentation. If you do not have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you are asked to provide it in the future. Remember, you're trying to demonstrate that you have 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. CSLB staff may contact the certifier of the work experience or other parties to verify the experience.
One other note, CSLB gets more than 1,000 applications a month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. They have got 2 pieces of advice for you. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take a trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay, that's the content you will need to fill out your application. Before getting into CSLB, double check to make sure you did not miss anything. Be sure to sign and date it as well. And don't forget to include all the important $330 application fee. You will pay the $200 initial license fee after you pass your exam or exams. Then put your application packet in the mail to CSLB, delivered to one of our public counters. We've got a bonus link at the bottom of the screen with our office locations.
Okay, so now that we have gone through the information that you're going to need to include, now we're going to look closely at the application itself so that you can see where this information goes. So here's section 1 of our application. Here is where you list your business name. Remember, when selecting a business name, make sure that the name that you have selected is compatible with the classification and the entity that you are applying for, and that it is not misleading. If your business is a corporation or an LLC, you would need to make sure that the name that you have registered with the Secretary of State matches the information that you are going to provide here. In line number 2 is where you will indicate what classification you are applying for. The mailing address and phone number that you list here on line 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you have received your license. In section 3, in section 2, you will select your business entity. If you are applying for a corporation or an LLC, you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. So make sure you pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. In section 3, you will list the qualifiers information. Remember, the qualifier is a person that meets the experience requirement and will also be responsible for the direct supervision and control of construction operations. The qualifier will be the person taking the exams. On line number 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers that you have held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you're the only person that will be listed on the license, you would enter 100% on this line here. On line 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements, so you will need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending on the entity that you have selected. You can find more information on this on pages 2 through 4 of our application instructions on our website. Line number 8 is where you will sign and date your application. Section 4 is where you will list the personnel information for all remaining personnel that will be listed on the license. For example, if you're applying for a corporation, you will need to indicate who will be the responsible managing officer or employee, the president, the secretary, and the treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 4 of our application instructions. If you will have more than 4 people on your license, you can make additional copies of this page here and include it with your application. For corporations and for LLCs, you'll want to make sure that all personnel that are listed with the Secretary of State are listed in this section here. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application here in Section 4. Section 5 is just a series of yes or no questions, so we're not going to go into detail on those. Section 6 here is where you may be granted credit towards your 4 years of experience based on your education. Question number 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official seal transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certification of completion. Get the seal transcript sent to you, then include it with your application packet. Do not have the program send the transcripts directly to CSLB. You don't want to take the chance that we're not able to match them up with your application. So make sure you get them sent to you, make sure they remain sealed, and then just mail them in with your application. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. This credit is not based on a year-to-year basis, meaning just because you have a 2-year college degree, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will be granted 2 years of credit towards your experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year time frame does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received outside of this country. If your degree is in any other language other than English, it has to be translated. Now we will discuss the certification of work experience. Part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you're going to list the information for your employer where you gained your work experience. If you were self-employed when you gained that experience, please make sure you check that box right here in line number 2. If you are applying for a B general construction license and will be using experience obtained while working on your own property, make sure you mark this box here on line number 4. Part 2 will be filled out by the certifier. In this section, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you were working on a part-time or a full-time basis. Keep in mind that if you were working part-time, you're only going to receive 50% of credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years in order to meet that 4-year requirement. On line number 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered critical for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of critical duties in CSLB's description of classification booklets available on our website. Do not copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers critical duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible. The final part of the work experience certificate is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you and provide their contact information. For example, in line number 7, there's different boxes that they can check. If they are a former employer of yours, a journeyman, if they are a contractor, and there they can list their license number. If they are a fellow employee of yours, a union representative, any of those boxes, they need to go ahead and check the box in section 7. Lastly, they will need to sign and date the certification. Now, the next form we're going to be discussing is the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience form. This form only needs to be completed if you're applying for the B General Construction License and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects at your own property. A separate form is required for each project on your property. The experience has to be verifiable through building permits, final inspections, and other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number here on line number 6. On line number 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. Here Here, in boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project you performed. Question number 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project and what trades they performed. Remember, this information needs to be as complete and accurate as possible.
With all the information Anna just covered, this is a good time to remind you that we are recording this workshop. We will post a video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch in case there is anything you missed. Okay, so you've got application submitted. How do you check the status of that application? Here are two resources. First is the secure check. You will need your application fee number and contractor's PIN number to get an update. We will send you that information after we receive, accept, and post your completed application. The second way to check is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the date we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for the date being worked on and know that the date shown is, if the date shown is after the date we likely receive your paperwork, it's likely we are busy working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands of documents every day, and we process them in the order they're received. So be sure to take extra time getting the application right, so we don't have to send it back to you to correct and then have to start the processing process again. When your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks prior to your exam date. CSLB test centers are currently open. They were closed from December to February for COVID-19. CSLB has 7 test centers throughout California and encourages candidates to take their exam at the nearest test center.
If you're an applicant whose first language isn't English and you don't feel confident taking your exams in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator who you provide simply reads your exam questions. Question number 15 on the application asks if you need a translator to complete the examination. The translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You cannot just show up on the day of your examination to the test center with someone to translate the exam for you. When you get an exam date, make sure you do not miss it. If you fail to appear for your exam, you will have to pay a non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee. The fee may be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstance beyond your control. Also, we have study guides available for each of our exams. Included in each study guide, you will find a list of sections and topics covered by the exam. They also include sample questions, how each section of the exam is weighted, and recommended resources that you can use to prepare for the examination now. These study guides are available online on our website. There's a bonus link here so that you can use right here at the bottom of the screen.
Here is a quick look at 2 of those study exams. The first is the Law and Business exam, which all qualifiers must take, no matter which license classification, including the D-Series limited classes. You can see the guide contains a breakdown of examination topics, some test strategies, sample questions, and resources that were used to help create that exam. You will see the same format on the B General Building Study Guide. We would recommend that you really pay attention to the exam content here, especially how we have broken down what percentage of question there will be on each of the 5 topics on the exam. You will also note on the lower right of both of these slides, you will see bonus links to the actual study guide, as well as a link to the complete list of study guides.
Again, our test centers are open. We do have COVID-19 procedures in place for applicants on test date. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get yourself checked in. You must wear a face mask or other face covering. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 50 minutes prior to your exam time. We've also produced a short video, What to Expect on Test Day, that you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is here at the bottom of the screen.
You will take your exam on a touchscreen computer. Before starting, you will see an on-screen tutorial that will take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You will also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about that question. You will get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that may reduce the amount of time you get to complete your exam. You will get your results at the end of the exam. If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the exam. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within the 18 months period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee each time.
After you pass the exam, what happens next? First, you'll need to pay $200 for your initial licensing fee, which will be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you'll need to file your required $15,000 contractor surety bond, and possibly some other bonds depending on what type of business entity you have selected. And you'll need to get your required insurance policy. If you have employees, you'll need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. See our website for more information on that. Please note that your insurance company or broker can submit your insurance information directly to CSLB on our website. If you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption form with CSLB. You can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations where you are going to solicit business, talk to potential customers, or sign contracts. We encourage consumers to ask you to see your pocket license. If you are going to have salesperson working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, a license issued today, April 2nd, 2021, will expire on April 30th, 2023. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need so you won't forget it. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
Here are a couple of other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or change your business address. Your renewal address will be sent to the address of record that we have on file. If you're not there anymore, you're probably not going to receive it. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to personnel on your record, especially when it involves a qualifier of the license.
Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to hire someone as a salesperson to solicit, sell, negotiate home improvement contracts on your behalf outside of your place of business. These people are called Home Improvement Salesperson, or HIS. Without a home improvement salesperson, the official personnel of record on a license are the only ones that can solicit, sell, negotiate, or execute a contract. That includes individual contractors, licensed qualifiers, partners, corporation officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. A home improvement salesperson can work for more than one contractor. The licensee must notify CSLB in writing when they either associate or disassociate a home improvement salesperson with their license.
There are a couple of exceptions to note. First are those who only schedule appointments for the contractor or the registered HIS. Bona fide service and repair people, the folks who you call out for repairs, including things like air conditioning, heating, and plumbing. But those service and repair people are limited to the work that was initially requested by the buyer or the homeowner. For example, if your AC goes out and you call an HVAC company to come out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair itself and they try to sell you a whole new HVAC system, then they would have to be a registered HIS. Also, don't employ an unregistered salesperson. That subjects you to the administrative discipline, and the salesperson might get a citation or possibly even a criminal misdemeanor. We've got bonus links at the bottom of this page for more information if you want to look at the actual code sections of law. Okay, that is our presentation. Now it is time to answer your questions. So we'll go ahead and take questions now. Let's see. Our first question is, what is the difference between a handyman license and a contractor license? So currently, CSLB doesn't offer a handyman license. A handyman license usually is a business license that's required by the county or the city where you're working. A contractor's license, as we discussed, can be given in different categories depending on what trade you will be performing. Does construction engineering fall under construction management? Bo, do you want to take that one?
Construction management, we really talk about the folks, for example, they're already contractors, so they're managing the overall construction business. But the engineering, construction engineering is the folks with the special engineering skills to work on the construction project. So an engineer could also manage the construction, but they're two different things.
Okay. The next one, he has a bachelor's of engineering and a master of technology degree from accredited university in India. Would I qualify for the waiver for my general building license? No, the waiver is a very specific situation. So we don't provide the waiver based on experience or education. It has to be a very specific situation. So no, you wouldn't qualify for the waiver. You would have to file the application, the original application for license. Links are not clickable, and we aren't able to copy them. Will you be sending out a presentation? So if you want the clickable version, what you have to do, you want to go to our website, www.cslb.ca.gov, and there's a banner at the top of the page. So then that's where you can download the presentation, and the links will be clickable there. So go ahead and go to our website, look at the top of the banner, and then download the presentation so that you can click on the links. What kind of application or documents needed to fill for my corporation to hire an RMO? So, what kind of application or documents do they need if they're going to have a corporation and they want to have an RMO?
See, if they're already licensed and they already have an RMO, then application to replace the qualifier. But if they do not have a license yet, then application for original contractor license, depends on if this new RMO has already passed the exam or not. If it has to pass the exam, you need to send the one it says waiver only with 7065. So application for original contractor's license, and if they're waiver, make sure you send the one which says waiver only.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. On section 3, number 7 of the application, I will be selecting RMO as my company is a corporation. Do I have to write something on the line provided or just check the box of RMO? So in section number 3 is where you let us know the different positions that everybody on the license will be held. And just as a reminder, if you are a corporation or an LLC, everybody who you have registered with the Secretary of State has to be listed on your application. So you can go ahead and let us know. You will let us know who your RMO is. You will indicate that in that section there. But everybody you have listed, your treasurer, your secretary, all of those have to be listed in section number 4, and they have to sign the application in section number 4. Okay. I have already been fingerprinted by CSLB and have a home improvement salesperson card. Do I have to get fingerprinted again? Vote.
No, if you already have,
sorry.
Yeah, if you already have the fingerprints on file, on the records, no, you don't need to do more fingerprints.
All right. I have about 5 years of experience of building constructions in India. Would this experience of mine in India be counted toward my experience requirement for the general building license? So we are able to give credit for out of state experience and also for out of the country experience. The burden of proof though is on you to be able to document that experience. So you would have somebody, if somebody can fill out your work experience certification form to include that experience, and they are able to provide us contact information where we're able to reach them and verify the information, you would be able to use that experience. Can you have 2 different licenses under one corporation? For example, a B contractor and a C27 landscape. 2 different people from the same company. Vote, can you have 2 different licenses?
Yes, one corporation can have 2 different licenses as long as one of them has used a DBA, doing business as. So they cannot be exactly the same name. You can use the corporation, but for the second one, you have to use a DBA.
I have 4 years of journeyman experience, but was paid cash. How can I prove my experience? Okay, so we did talk about how you can prove your experience when you are self-employed or if you have been cash paid. So check stubs are not the only thing that we ask for, because we understand that a lot of the experience is received as you are being paid cash. So you'll want to refer back to that section of the workshop where we talked about acceptable documentation that we will accept in the event that you are asked for supplemental documentation to prove your work experience. The important thing to remember with that is that you don't want to send that information in with your application. That's only if your application is selected for that additional information. The CSLB tech, they would get a hold of you, they'll contact you and let you know, hey, we need additional information from you. At that time, that's when you would send that in. Different things. If you have invoices that you've saved over the years, if you have billings, anything that can prove your work experience. So refer back to that document there. It is available to print on our website as well. You'll want to go ahead and gather that information now, but you won't have to send it in until we ask for it. Okay. Can I send a copy of my BS degree? So remember, we're not gonna be able to look at any degrees ahead of time. You're gonna want to send in your sealed transcripts with your application. We don't have the staff to be able to look at it now and let you know how much work experience you'd be able to get. So you're gonna want to get the sealed transcripts, leave them sealed, send them in with your application, and then somebody will get a hold of you and let you know how much experience. On section 4 of the application, for the rest of the personnel, do I write NA or just leave blank? You can do either. You can write NA if there's nobody else there, it's just you. That's fine. Can certifiers use digital signatures like DocuSign, or do they need to fill out the paper? Fode, can certifiers use digital signatures like DocuSign?
Yes, we accept the DocuSign. If we find it questionable, we will contact that person just to verify it, but we do accept it.
My colleges in India have issued degrees to me that I have an original. Would these original degree certificates suffice to be submitted as separate transcripts and not given by university colleges in India? So do you see that question?
No, unfortunately, we need the transcripts, and transcripts had to be evaluated with accredited institute in United States. So they can actually tell us what is the equivalent of that degree in United States by looking actually at your curriculum and the courses that you've taken. So we would need that.
On section 4, for the title or position checkbox for my personnel, he is listed on the corporation as Chief Financial Officer. Do I check the box for officer or leave as is? Check the box and write Chief Financial Officer. They can check the box for officer, correct, folks?
Yeah, check the officer and write down Chief Financial Officer. That the last part is the correct.
Can the exam be taken before submitting the work experience waiver document? So we don't have a work experience waiver document. You have to prove work experience. There is no waiver documentation for the work experience. So I'm not sure what that question is regarding. And the exam, you submit your application along with your work experience forms, and then we will set you up for a test date. What do you need for a C61 D63 construction cleanup license? So the same requirements would apply. You still have to fill out your application. You still have to have somebody certify your work experience on the certification forms. The only difference with the C61 license is that on the day of your examination, you would only take one examination, the business and law examination. You wouldn't have to take a second trade examination, but that is the only difference. All the other requirements still apply. Do we need to submit the fingerprint with the application or after the exam? Fode, when do they submit their fingerprints?
Once we have received your application, reviewed it, accepted it, and posted, and then we'll send it to exam. But once we post it, we will issue a live scan packet and we'll send it to you. So you can do it in parallel while you're taking your exam, during that time.
Right, so you don't want to do it before because you have to wait for us to send you the packet. So you don't want to send it in with your application. You have to wait, submit your application, we'll send you a packet, and then go get it done.
Right.
Do I need a signature to show proof of work experience? Yes, as we discussed, somebody needs to certify your work experience. We call that person the certifier. You can select who your certifier is. Your certifier is somebody who has knowledge that you have 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. So if one person can certify 4 years, great, have that one person fill out the form. But sometimes you'll need more than one certifier. Maybe one person can certify 2 years, and then you have another person who can certify another year and another year. So make as many copies as you need for each certifier and have them fill out the form. But yes, what we're looking for is 48 months in the last 10 years. Okay. If you are submitting work experience as an owner builder for Class B contractor, does the permit period translate to the length of work time experience factored? Thank you so much. So, Fode, when you're looking at the owner builder form, does the permit period equal exactly the amount of experience credit they're going to receive for that project?
No. Actually, the deputy will look at the owner builder projects, and there is a standard within the industry that they follow. So maybe take you 2 years to complete it, but they go based on industry standards. So the length of it takes how long to get your permit is not relevant.
Correct. Okay. The company I employed with is expanding our home major appliance division in California. We provide in-home repair for washers and dryers, dishwashers. While attempting to place an order with local While attempting to place an order with local refrigeration distributor, we were informed that a C38 license was required for the purchase of refrigerant and refrigerant-related equipment. This license appears to be directed towards commercial applications. I'm not sure what the question is there. Is this the correct license? Oh, okay, it continues. Is this the correct license? Or is there something more specific to our industry for in-home consumer repair? Bo, do you want to take that one?
Is the correct license? Is there something more specific? Well, C38 is for refrigeration, so and it's not necessarily commercial. I mean, it could be residential, but we don't. Specific to our industry. So if you do, like C20, that's for, yeah, no. And then refrigerators. No, this one, can't really answer now, but that one is not really under our jurisdictions.
So we also have a booklet of description of classifications that you can access on our website. And what it does there is tells you what you can do with what type of work you can do with every license classification that we offer. It's called Description of Classifications. It's available on our website now. So you'll want to look at the C38 and see exactly what it covers. And if you see that it does entail what you cover, then that's what you want to go for. However, let's say you read that description and you're still not sure if it covers your classification. You do have the option of sending an email. We have a classification deputy, and what they do is they tell you exactly which license you would need. So you can email them. Their email address is classifications with an S at the end, classifications at CSLB.ca.gov. And what they do is you're going to give them a little bit of information. You're going to tell them exactly what you put in your question here, what type of work you're going to be doing, what is going to be your scope of your contract. And then they will respond to you. They'll send you an email letting you know what the appropriate classification is. So you have that option. We do ask that you give them about 2 to 3 weeks to respond. They will respond. Don't keep sending them emails. They'll get back to you and let you know. Okay, thank you. Next question. How many certifiers are needed? Fode, how many certifiers do they need?
Well, you have to certify 48 months or 4 years of experience. So it depends on, if one certifier can verify your experience for the duration, that's all you need. But if your experience was in 2-3 different places and you have different people who observe you, then each one of them needs to complete the certification of work experience.
If we have a lot of out-of-state work experience, but only about 1 year of California work experience, should I still add my educational bachelor degree experience as well? So we do look at out-of-state work experience, just like your California work experience, as long as you have somebody who can certify it. That would be considered as work experience. So you can include the out-of-state work experience, you can include the California work experience, and you can also include your bachelor's degree. Hopefully in a combination of all of that experience, you'll have enough for the 48 required months. How many years of experience do you need for C61? So all of our requirements are the same. Everybody needs 4 years of experience within the last 10 years in the trade that you are applying for. I'm just seeing some repeated questions. Let me see. Does over 15 years of experience count to qualify for an exam waiver? No, again, as we mentioned, the exam waiver is not given based on the years of experience you have or how much education you have. It's got to be very specific situation. It's almost if you've already been on a license and the license is still active, then you might qualify for a waiver. But it's very specific situation. It's not based on work experience. I am an active duty service member who is preparing to retire from the military, and my wife and I are looking to open our own business working small home improvement projects. Would it be more beneficial to apply for a general contractor license and HIS, or would individual license such as C7, C27, C54 be more appropriate route based on our anticipated scopes of work? So do you want to answer that one?
Well, if the project that you will take in, it has more than one trades, then you would need a B, the general contractor building. But overall, you have to see where your experience is. Can you provide the 4 years of experience for a B general contractor? Or maybe your experience was more with C54. So you have to look at your experience and then also make sure you fall within the classification when you do work. So if you're going to take projects that needs more than one trade, you would need your B.
Can a bachelor's degree from before 2011 be used? Yes. So we mentioned that the 10 years of the 10-year limitation is on work experience, not on education. So even if you got your education a long time ago, that's fine. You can still submit your transcripts to be considered. Would a foreign experience counted? Would foreign experience be counted? Yes, we mentioned that as well. That if you are able to provide evidence that you have experience, even if it was out of the state, out of the country, it would be considered. But you have to have somebody who is able to certify that experience. They would need to fill out the form, and they would need to be able to provide their contact information to us so that we could verify the information. I have worked part-time and full-time for the past 4 years. Do I meet the 4 years of experience? Fo, do you want to take that one? They've worked part-time and full-time for 4 years.
Well, again, you have to certify 48 months of experience. So if within the 4 years, 2 of those years were part-time and 2 full-time, then you can cover the 4 years. So the total of your time should be 48 months. If all of it was full-time, of course, that's good enough. But that's what you need, 48 months.
Is Type A license classification required for delegated design deferred submittals under a specialty scope? Is Type A license classification required for delegated design deferred submittals under specialty classification scope?
Well, there are 2 different classification. A is general engineering, and C has many different classifications. So I don't really understand the question.
Yeah, it's kind of a confusing question. Two different types of license. The A, like you mentioned, is general engineering, and the C's have different specialty classification.
Right.
Different scope of work. Does a DUI count as a felony? If so, can I be disqualified? Do you want to take that info? Does DUI count as a felony, and will they be disqualified if they have a DUI from obtaining a contractor license?
Well, we would look at those on case-by-case basis and how recent they were. So I can't give you one way or the other on the phone.
Okay. What is the current processing time for a C27 landscape license? Okay, so our processing times are the same for all of our licenses for all classifications. And you can go on our website now and look to see what our processing times are. You just go to our website, in the search engine, enter processing times, and then it will take you to a list so that you could see what date we go on receipt date, and you'll see what date we're working on now. What do you need for a C61 licensed construction cleanup? How many years of experience? So we've talked about that one already. 4 years. Experience is the same. Can I take the general building contractor exam before submitting my work experience documentation? Again, we've answered that one as well. No. Am I able to get study guides for a C61 license? Yes. So the study guides that we have are available also on our website. You can go to our website, in the search engine, type study guides. The only study guide that you would need would be for the business and law examination. You will not have to take a trade exam. So there is no C61 trade exam study guide, but you do want to look at the business and law study guide, because that will be the only exam that you have to take. If I have a qualifier that is a licensed contractor and he forms a corporation or a partnership and adds me as personnel and I will be working under the license, don't I need to also take the exam? So do you want to take that one? So it looks like they have a qualifier. Do they need to take the exam?
No, only the qualifier of the license is the person who take the exam. The personnel on the license, they do not take the exam.
Is a DBA the same as a FBN? So a DBA is a doing business as. So what that implies is that, let's say you have a name for your license, but you would like to do work under a different license, a different name, you can create a doing business as. And just the important part of the DBA is you want to make sure that you use that name on all of your contracts and all of your advertising. The FBN is the fictional business name. We use DBAs. We don't use FBNs. We just use the DBA, and you can let us know what your DBA is. Does a master's degree in a non-construction related field provide any benefit for educational experience? So if it's not construction related, would it provide any benefit?
Yes, please submit. You will get something for it.
Just to clarify, for work experience, I would have my supervisor fill out the form. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your supervisor. If your supervisor is willing to fill out the form and you're okay with them filling out the form, absolutely. They can fill it out. Just be as detailed as possible and we will accept the form. If sometimes we have applicants who don't want their supervisors to know that they're going for an application, so for a license. So maybe perhaps they don't want their supervisor to fill out the form. That's okay too. That's why we showed you the different categories of the certifier. It can be, if you're part of a union, it could be somebody from the union, a union representative. If you have a foreperson that is willing to fill it out, they can fill it out. A co-worker can also fill it out. Anybody that has knowledge that you have 4 years of experience within the last 10 years can be your certifier, as long as they are able to certify that you have that experience. And they need to be very detailed in that section 6 of the certification, letting us know what exactly were the duties that you performed. My qualifier already has a C21 license. Does he still need to show proof of work experience and take an exam? If you have a qualifier who has a C21 license and they're going to be the qualifier on your license and you're going for a C21, they do need to show proof of work experience. They need to list the license number that he is on, but he will not need to take the exam, assuming that he took his C21 license is active, correct, Food? It says my qualifier already has a C21 license. Does he need to take the exam? He wouldn't have to re-exam as long as you're going for the C21 classification. Does it matter if a certifier is a family member? So does it matter if a certifier is a family member? Can a wife certify a husband's experience?
No, that's fine. That's fine. It can be a family member as long as they observe the work.
I am an active, okay, so we already answered that one as well. I work with an LLC company. Can I add the owner to the license when applying for the license? I work with an LLC company. Can I add the owner to the license when applying for the license? So if you already have an LLC, the way I understand this question, you already have an LLC, it's already registered, and now you're trying to apply for the license. Yes, you want to add whoever is registered with the Secretary of State. So first, when you have an LLC, you have to go to the Secretary of State and register your LLC. You have to tell us who is, what position each person is holding. And so we look at the the Secretary of State's records. We have access to the records. So you want to make sure that everybody you have listed there is also listed on your application. So make sure all the officers are there. Everybody's listed. Everybody has signed your application because we do compare. Thank you. I did send the email to classification this morning. Thank you for setting timeline expectations. Thank you. The application asks for a CSLB license number. The application asks for a CSLB license number for a new business. Where do I get this? So that is only in the case that you already have a license number. So if you've had a license in the past, that's what it's asking you there. Have you had a license in the past? If so, what was that number? If you have a new business, you do not have to list anything in that section. If you're brand new, first time you're applying for a license. I have a professional master's of architecture degree and a master's of landscape architecture degree. What amount of educational credit would I receive? I'm interested in the B and the C27. Again, we're not going to be able to tell you exactly. You're going to want to refer to the chart that we have up on our screen now. We can't tell you ahead of time how much experience credit you're going to be getting. If you're interested in the B and the C27, just remember you're going to have to select one to begin the process. So either the B or the C27 when you apply the first time, and then you can always add additional classifications to your license. As soon as you are issued a license number, you can submit what we call a supplemental classification application, and the fee for that is $150. And you can add the C. Let's say you start with the B, and you can add the C27 as long as you're able to provide experience, the same requirements, 4 years within the last 10 years, we would be able to add that classification to your license. And the good thing with that is there is $150 to add the classification to your license, but at the time of renewal, there's only one renewal fee, regardless of how many classifications you have. So it's not, it's not a separate fee for each. It's one renewal fee for all classifications. Does an RME need to own shares in the corporation? Does an RME need to own shares in the corporation?
No, RMEs, we consider their employees, responsible managing employees, and they have 0%.
Can a qualifier have two companies working with the same one license that he has? Can a qualifier have two companies working with the same one license that he has? So a qualifier can be on different number of licenses, right? You can't have two companies with one license, but you can be a qualifier on two different licenses, if that makes sense. Is that correct, folks?
No, you're absolutely correct. Each company would engage in the construction business has to have its own license. Now, you can qualify two licenses, but each company has to have its own license.
Will you contact my current employer at all if I'm applying for my own license? I wouldn't really want my company to know. They might fire me. Do we contact their current employer, Fode?
For that, what I would want you to do is submit a letter with your certification of work experience that you do not want us to contact your employer. And if we have to verify your experience, we will find other ways. You have to let us know.
Can I file my application online? If so, I cannot find the link. So right now we're currently not taking applications online. You can print it. You can fill it out online. So you fill it out, but then you have to print it, sign it, and mail it in. You can't submit it just yet online. I have worked as an environmental consultant for the past 18 years under a licensed landscape architect, which includes reviewing plans and specifications and writing construction specifications. Would that experience be considered as pertinent experience? 18 years under a licensed landscape architect as a consultant. Is that considered experience, Fred?
Well, again, we will actually have to look at the trades, but we are looking at the, that you have performed or supervised employees perform. So if it was just a design, no, we do not give credits to that.
CSLB processing times on the website says 525 for San Diego. So given today is only 4/2, that's basically 8 weeks processing time. So I think what you're looking at for San Diego is the test date for 525. So yeah, that sounds about right. If they sent it in, if we received your application on 4/2, you're most likely to get a test date on 525 in San Diego. If B license is valid, would be able to use it for C36 plumbing or have to get the C36? Okay, so one caveat with the B license, what the law states is that when you have a B license, you want, if the job that you're doing does not include framing, then you want to have 2 unrelated trades on every single contract. Every single contract has to have 2 unrelated trades. So if somebody were to hire you just for plumbing, you're going to do nothing else but plumbing, you couldn't take that job on as a B licensee. You would have to you could take it, but subcontract it to a C36 licensee, or you can do it as part of a project. Let's say you're going to be doing some painting and some plumbing. Then you're okay because those are 2 unrelated trades on one contract. But you couldn't just take the C36 and perform the work yourself. I've done several handyman jobs that have taken a handful of days over the last 4 years. Would that count as 4 years work of experience? So if you have consistently worked for the past 4 years, and somebody is willing to certify that, then we would look at that. You're saying you're doing several handyman jobs, so that depends what license you're going to be applying for, because we don't have a handyman license right now. So it depends. We'll have to look at it. You want to make sure that the person that you choose to certify your work experience is knowledgeable and knows exactly what type of jobs you've been doing, and they're going to want to be very detailed as to what jobs you have been performing. So be very specific, and you might want to go over the examples that we gave in this workshop here. The last question? That's the last question I see. Okay, so it looks like we answered all of the questions. So that's that is all the questions that we have for today. Thank you for all of your questions. Those were really good questions. If you have any other questions about your application, we encourage you to drop an email to our licensing division. Here is that email address: licensing@cslb.ca.gov. Again, licensing@cslb.ca.gov. If at some point you need to reschedule your exam, you can get that process started by dropping an email to exams@cslb.ca.gov. We've also put together a list of available resources for women considering a career in construction. If you haven't already, be sure to download this presentation to get them. You can download the presentation on the green banner at the top of our homepage, www.cslb.ca.gov. If you're watching the archived video of this workshop on our YouTube page, you'll find a link to the presentation down below.
We welcome your comments or topics for future webcasts. Just drop us an email to social@cslb.ca.gov. A special thanks to our licensing division and public affairs office for their help on this workshop. The Get License to Bid workshop is a copyrighted production of the California State License Board. Thanks for watching.